All right, so here we are live. Hi, Carrie. How's it going?
Shirley, it is good. I miss seeing your face. It's nice to see you today. How are you?
With my crazy glasses.
I love your glasses.
Patients are like, "What are you wearing?" So,
It's like straight back to the 70s. The
no,
iridescence on it is what's for me.
so my son said, my son does all the artwork around here, and he did our logo and everything. And he's like, "Well, I'm not mad that they're round, but there's a lot going on." So
Yeah.
whatever, it's all good. I can see okay, and that's the most important thing. I'm not squinting, and I'm not doing that anymore. So it's
Oh,
all
I'm not going
good.
to see your nostrils today.
No, you're going to be sans nostralis.
Mm.
So welcome everybody to Upstream Intelligence. Victoria is off on another project today, and so it's all me talking to Carrie Ibbetson, the inventor and creator and owner of Oral Health Coaching, which is an online oral health coaching outfit where patients who are sick and tired of the status quo and the information and the recommendations they get from their regular dentist, who are looking for better options and getting through to the root cause of what their problems are. So, Carrie, do you have more of a little introduction for yourself right now?
That was a great start. I think when I first started putting my hands in people's mouths, I was a dental assistant, and the beauty of that was I got to see very much what it was like to understand like the architecture of things that were going on. But then when patients would get in the chair and they'd have this dental work done, I would notice that this buildup was always kind of in the same place where they needed the dental work, and it just baffled me how no one was really getting any personalized training. And so I knew before dental hygiene school. I'm so thankful for my years as an assistant because had I just gone into hygiene, I never would have even seen this piece to the puzzle. But that was back in like 1989. I'm kind of dating myself here. So the dating of the technology is really what it was. I had no idea what that would look like. And so fast forward to my career in dental hygiene and doing all the things that I was doing, I really got to a point where my skill set was more like personal training. And I was able to pivot my the time that I had my patient in the chairs where I wasn't even really focusing on cleaning their teeth at first, but was more focused on helping them get motivated and trained. And so in 2011, I think it was, I started that process online, and I don't see patients anymore. It's all consumers who are wanting to get better results. It started out with better results with their home care, and then once I got on top of that, then this whole world opened up of like the stuff that you had been talking about. We grow off the backs of giants, right? And so I am of that generation just below you of hygienists who you had this level of hygienists who were just like out there really wanting to make a change and a difference. And so now that we have online stuff, it makes it so much easier for people to get the information, but
Yeah.
it also makes it really easy for people to get misinformation. And there's so much out there that people are just really scattered. And so I think now my gift is helping people focus and streamline with what they're doing at home, and then how that pivots into having the brain space to tackle some of the other root causes, because that's always going to involve finding different types of providers. And I think that's what we're going to kind of talk about is that type of the stuff, the importance of that stuff, right? Like,
Well, yeah, consumer anger, especially with healthcare, they're just furious. They go in, they've never had a cavity, now they have three cavities, and they get yelled at for not flossing. And they get yelled at because they didn't use fluoride toothpaste or, some other stuff that is so 1980s. I just can't. even tolerate it anymore, that we are still exactly doing, and I'm not clinical anymore, neither are you, but we both belong to dental hygiene Facebook pages. And they are absolutely word for word the exact same conversations we were having in the 80s before the internet. And that is a crime. We can do so much more, and we know
Yes.
so much more that if you're a dental patient and you're still getting yammered at about flossing and fluoride, you need to find a different dentist.
It's true. It's true. But then also, when
Yeah.
you move yourself out of fluoride products, anything else is considered cosmetic. And so there is no proof or validity in the products that are out there. So now you, the person who's using the products, have to understand the ingredients and then what they do and what they don't do. And unfortunately, so many of the
Yeah.
things that are on the market destroy the whole oral microbiome instead of like, helping the good army survive. Like, how do we do that? How do we kill off the bad, help the good? How do we help you develop some things at home to put those in place so that it's not so overwhelming, right? Like even just toothbrushing techniques and forget ourselves, right? Like a lot of people are not really self-motivated or self-involved, but when you get your kid
Yep.
involved, that's a little bit of a different story. And that fear and the frustration from a parental perspective is off the charts astronomical. The guilt, the mom shame and the guilt that's coming in from that is, I think, really difficult for people to manage. And I think we're just here already that when
Yeah.
you add stuff on top of it, it just makes it a lot more
It's
challenging.
all of it's all of medicine. It's all of healthcare, for mental health, for body health, for heart health, for stomach health, for yada yada, all the way down the list. It's all too many silos, too too little professional curiosity, and the silencing of those who have professional curiosity, which I have never said out loud. This is the big problem. We are we're in a bad situation. I don't know what Kennedy's going to be able to do about it, because that silencing of the alternative voices who turned out to be right in these last 5 years is is part of the crime that's happening. And you're talking about products, which is fine because we do have a surface issue here. But you and I think we both know that dental decay and periodontal disease both come from a nutritional deficiency somewhere, which usually turns out to be a fat deficiency. So,
Which is really interesting, right? Like we're coming off of the second generation of the fat-free
oh,
craze,
second,
right?
or it's a third for sure.
I
Yeah.
remember I remember that big craze and even
Mm-hmm.
now, parents are like, "But we eat so healthy." And I'm like, "It's not that you're not eating healthy, it's what is your body calling for and what mainstream are you looking at? You could be looking here, but you might need to look here in order to move the needle a little bit more. And, you move into, then it'll take you down the rabbit holes of like the generations of sunscreen. And, then we're on both sides of that and the vitamin D deficiencies that come from it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it gets overwhelming for us, right? So
It
how do
does,
we,
but if you look at it from a primal perspective, which is what I'm trying to do all the time, it's not that hard. It's just not that hard. So you and I have talked about this water problem too, is you have to drink an ounce of water for every pound of person or some other, a gallon of water a day. And I was like, it's not evolutionarily consistent. Primal man couldn't take water with them. They would have never explored past, a half a day away from a water source if that was true. So just the other day, I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Dr. Barry. I can't remember now. There's just so many, talking to a lady who lived with these tribes that still live ancestrally. They drink up to a cup of water a day, she said.
now it would be really interesting to know if that tribe also hung out with our mouth closed or open.
Yep. It was, their mouths are all closed. They have room for all 32 teeth. They don't have dental decay. They don't have malocclusions. They don't, the
And I think
body,
that's the challenge. I think right
yep.
there, and that's where we kind of everybody knows about Weston Price and they talk a lot about the
Hmm.
Weston Price diet, but nobody talks about Pottinger. And I know you love Pottinger.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you and I can go down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
really easily because you can see now that now we're like 5 or 6 generations into
We
these
are.
epigenetic changes. So just not just eating whole food doesn't necessarily it's not going to unwind you enough that there's lots of little different puzzle pieces that kind of have to be looked at all at once. And I'm really lucky
All at
that
once.
somehow down this whole weird place, like my doula, who is also like a life coach and a dear friend to me, now works directly with Dr. Nordstrom with his like
Oh,
ALF stuff. And so now I get to see like really understanding the fascia that people aren't necessarily talking about and the way that our bodies are contorted and wound and how moms aren't learning how to breathe effectively through pregnancy. And then they're not strong enough to birth these babies and moving into Pitocin and making, like turning it into
wow.
a medical intervention. Like there's so much. And all the viruses that are really attacking our immune systems that
Well,
because we're
our
just
immune
so
system
weak.
is
We're so weak.
unable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so weak. Um, if, and that comes again with nose breathing versus mouth breathing. If you're sucking all your air in through your mouth, there's nothing killing the bacteria. It's just coming in. So then you use mouthwash and then you kill everything except the wrong, all of the things,
Yeah, we
except
need
the
to talk.
stuff that's
Can
in
we
the
talk about
air
that
coming
today really
through.
quickly? I know we're not like product focus, but if I
Yeah.
have to see another thing that says don't use mouthwash anymore, it's gonna make me like
Yeah.
cringe even harder. Yes, don't use certain mouthwashes every
Right.
day. But if you're using a pH neutral mouthwash that isn't killing your bad bacteria, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the
How do you
hardcore.
know? Do you without having a chemistry background?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to
Yeah,
learn
you
what
can't know.
ingredients are what and
And
what does
so
what,
that's what your
which is
website
why I
offers,
do what I
right?
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
exactly. So you go through all the ingredients and you talk about each of these. And then there's the mouthwashes that have the nanohydroxyapatite. And that was like, woohoo, when that first came out. And then I was like, now I'm starting to see problems with nanoparticles and how that's not, I'm like, there's just no end. Just eat actual FOOD from the outside of the grocery store. You did a little experiment with food for quite some time on yourself. And did you get any cavities out of that little experiment? You want to just spend 1 second just grossing people out about it?
where I didn't brush my teeth for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd do it over again. Now that I'm on that side of
Mm-hmm.
clearing it, it's funny. I think that as healthcare providers or people that
Yeah.
are helping people through health, I can see the other pieces to the puzzle. The big reason that I did it was because I had a crown that broke and it was broken again and again and again because of the dentistry that's been put on it and the fact that nobody has addressed my mid and posterior tongue tie, and I've had braces twice. And the challenge with being a dental provider is knowing that a lot of dental providers are just patcher people. They're
Yep.
doing the best with what they can. I do believe that most of us are doing the best with what we can in most days, but like you came back to it, professional curiosity is challenging, especially when you have a system designed that somebody that is,
Mm-hmm.
overseeing what you do has a different motive and plan than maybe you do. And I think that's a big challenge for dental offices. And so when that crown broke, I knew that I wasn't going to have it replaced. And I knew that there was so much of this other like body work and stuff that needed to be done. So I was like, why not? And now I've brought my oral health and my microbiome back up to health, but like most patients, I'm still at the place where it's hard for me to trust providers. It's really hard for me to go, okay, here's my money, here's my body. Let's invest this $20,000 and let's make it happen. Uh, I'm still not there, if I'm being completely honest. And I know a lot of
I'm
really good
exactly with you.
providers.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
with you.
yeah, so I know enough. I do enough. I'm in a stable environment. But the world has just been a little bit crazy these last few years that I also know that unraveling these things can cause uh, a lot of turmoil in our own personal lives, right? Like being the patient. I
Yeah,
know what's involved in that, and I'm just not ready. So sometimes a holding pattern is perfectly fine, perfectly fine. And sometimes dipping your toe in wellness and then backing up from it and being like, now is not the right time. Unfortunately, as a woman, and as a mom and as a woman who also then has the sandwich generation, like trying to help our parents deal with their stuff,
yeah,
sometimes at the end of the day, you don't have enough in your reserves to go, no, now is my time. And so I know my time is coming, and I'm patient in the fact that I'm happy that I understand my holding patterns, I understand where I'm at, I understand signs and symptoms to see like if things are changing and
yeah.
changes that I need to make. But just because I'm a provider and just because I help people through their challenges doesn't mean that I don't have my own challenges myself. And it doesn't mean that I don't uh, know when to say, I'm okay where I'm at right now.
Do
And I think that's a
you,
big thing for
for
patients
a
to
lot of
learn
people,
is
yeah.
is it's okay to
I have
like,
a patient like that right now who's in her 70s, and she has pretty severe sleep apnea. And we have a treatment plan that we're working on. And then she had to go down to Florida for 3 months. So everything's on hold. So I'm watching her sleep using a wearable. And I'm like, dude, we really need to do something. You're really, not well. And she's like, Shirley, I'm 70, whatever years old. Does it really matter? I'm still getting up in the morning. I'm still able to do stuff all day long. And I'm like, you came to me because you were not happy with your sleep. I don't know.
but
You
sometimes
tell
you just
me.
need that person by your
Yeah.
side to
Yeah.
say, it's okay to take in life, in
Yeah.
so many things, we're gonna take two steps forward and one step back. Sometimes we're gonna take a step forward and three steps back. And I
Yep.
think that that's when you're talking about moving upstream,
Mhm.
sometimes you gotta like know that those eddies exist in the river and be
There you
okay
go.
with just hanging out in them because if you just wait long enough, things unfold for themselves. Now, you're not necessarily wrong in what you're saying, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge with healthcare,
Yeah.
mental health care is the way that our system is created. We have very short times when we're actually working with somebody. And
Yes.
and then it gets very expensive and it's hard sometimes if you're not ready for a
Yeah.
myriad of reasons to make the changes that you need to make. Sometimes you just need somebody going, I'm here, you know exactly where I am, you know where to find me, and I'm going to be here while you're waiting. And that's why I love having a low cost membership because it keeps people in the door, right? It keeps them with me,
Right.
and when they're ready to ask questions, they know exactly where to go. They don't have to like search for those things. And there's a lot of things that I don't have answers to, but I do have a very high level of professional curiosity and I do have a really good
Yeah.
Rolodex. And I'm never going to put my hands on people. I'm never going to be that provider. I can only be that
Yeah.
shepherd, right? I can only help people through that process. And I love what I get to do now. I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. It's amazing. You've done so much work. Just putting it online is a real job, a job and a half. And the platforms, you've used every platform I think that there is. And you've settled on one that's just beautiful and easy to navigate. And there are courses on there. They're self-paced. You can watch them. You don't have to watch them. You don't have to go through like a hurdle to get to the next one. So, and everybody comes with a list of questions that is not in the same order as the instructor. And sometimes you have to have this third level question answered before you can go back to the first level and then figure the rest of it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really something. I understand this holding pattern, and what I've been saying lately is that I'm tired of being a physician's pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so exhausted from that. I don't want to hold back. I don't want to argue with these guys. I just want, if I go in there and say, my blood glucose is fine, but I think my insulin is overproducing, and I would like to have a blood test for the insulin. She goes, well, you should do a blood glucose test to test for insulin. I said, it's not a test. It's not a test for insulin. And she wouldn't do it. So I had to go and do it on my own. And
Well,
I am high.
I think that's exactly where concierge medicine
Yes.
has been so
Mm-hmm.
helpful because now, and when you look at, from 2020 and beyond, some things the doors were closed
Yeah.
tight. A lot of that stuff has been relaxed. So in the States, you can, order your own labs, if you will. There's places for things like that. Now, you might have a challenge helping somebody find, like, read them, like where these other pieces of
Yeah.
the puzzle fit. But I think it's great that we can do a lot of our own lab pulling and just go, I'm not interested in just, we don't have, when you're choosing a provider, when you're asking them questions about like who they are, how they study, how they learn, who they integrate with. And I think this is a big piece of like Upstream. It's never going to be one provider that you're working with. And
No, it's a
unfortunately,
cluster. It's a
yeah,
kaleidoscope.
yeah. And you have to ask the providers like, okay, when you're working with my case, who's part of your team? And I think that's a big red flag if they're like, no, I do it all. If you're going through it to an airway orthodontist or an airway dentist, and they're not working with a myofunctional therapist who's also working with a craniosacral therapist, if I see one more person like talking about tongue tie releases without checking people's feet, like, come on, like it's all together. It's all one band. We talk about Kegel exercises, but nobody's talking about exercising the roof of the mouth and the tongue to get up there. I mean, it's all so interconnected. And when we came out with that understanding that there's one piece of fascia that goes from your tongue to your toe, like what? And people, even for the first couple of years, when I would show that to like my nurse friends and things like that, they're like, that's not true. I'm like, it absolutely is true. And if we're not learning to unwind that stuff, then we're just spinning our wheels because we might see some success right now, but what are we looking for? What's our goal? Do we have a long-term goal? And how do we work backwards from that? And how do we choose providers that are open to communicating with other providers? And I hear the same thing all the time. Like,
Yeah.
you know, many of my clients are afraid to share with their dental providers that they have an oral
Yes.
health coach, but
Yes.
but when they go in, they're like, whoa, these, like, your numbers look so much better, or your teeth have never been so clean,
Yep.
or the decay that I wanted to fix has, been arrested and we're working on remineralization. This is awesome. Like, it'd be nice if
And
one
they
day I
could be
got an
doing it
email.
too. They
Yeah.
could be doing it from the dental office. And that I'm just kind of curious you bet you're probably not, that far in yet, but do you know who your makeup is, who your customers are? Are they almost all disjointed and dissatisfied with their current thing, or are they all people that live too far away from their dentist, or what kind of patients, what kind of clients, what kind of people are in your oral health coaching environment?
Oh, such a good question. And it runs the gamut. I have professionals, like I have doctors and physical therapists and
Wow.
anesthesiologists all having like problems with their children and
Oh,
wanting different solutions for their children. A lot of people, want to avoid those big treatment plans. They're afraid of putting their kids under, right? So I have from people that are on state funded assistance, right? And then they are moving into it. It's a lot of parents. When I started
yeah.
this, I didn't think it would be a lot of parents, and I never, ever, ever wanted kids to be my focus. But it
That's how
turns
you
out
prevent stuff, right? You
that's the
fix the
leaders of
kid.
the next those are our next leaders, right? And if
Yeah.
we don't get people with some emotional intelligence, we're gonna struggle even more than we're struggling right now. It's the landscape is pretty it's an interesting landscape right now. So I'm really glad that I don't have to overly pay attention to that because I can put my blinders on. I'm so busy here helping what I can help with that the noise gives me too much anxiety, and then I can't focus on the stuff that I need to do.
Yeah.
And so people are like, "Oh, did you see what's happened?" I'm like, "Nope, I didn't. I check in when I need to, but
Yeah. Well, you're going to get to a stage where you're going to be like, oh my God, why wasn't I paying more attention? I
I'm
think
sure."
things are going to straighten out a little bit finally. I was like that. I was just up until till 2020 when shit hit the fan, pardon my French. And I was like, none of this makes sense. And then I found other people that were also smarter people that also were saying this doesn't make sense. And here's why it doesn't make sense. Because I do have kind of a little gut feeling that now that I'm a crone, I've decided that maybe I should pay a little attention to my gut. And it's a little bit paying off. So there's that. So the consumer, though, there's two kinds now, right? So we used to just be all like consumers, and now we're like consumers that are like driven to find a different solution because they see their grandparents losing all their teeth when they go into a nursing home, and their parents are crown after bridge after crown after implant after blah 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 blah, and it's just thousands and thousands of
But
dollars.
but over 50% of the population don't even visit the dentist unless
Don't
it's
even
an
go.
emergency. They don't even know. So
It's
they don't know what
still
they don't know.
50%.
Over 50%.
Yeah. See,
It
probably
hasn't
because they
gotten any
don't want to
better
spend
since 2020.
thousands.
Hasn't gotten any better.
They don't want to spend thousands. And then you have the other half that is like, I'm going to do this the way I've always done it. I'm going to floss my teeth. I'm going to do whatever the doctor says. And that all of this other stuff is for nut jobs. And
I
that's,
think
I'm
the nut
okay
jobs
being
are
a nut
just
job.
getting more of a voice. And
Yeah.
they mock you
Mm-hmm.
until they follow you, right? Like,
Until it's self evident. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And and
Oh,
and so to go back to like who are my people? Not everybody's super motivated that comes to
mm-hmm.
me. A lot of people are scared and confused,
Right.
right? They're not necessarily motivated to make a big difference. They just know that what they're doing at home isn't working, and they're trying by purchasing products, and part of the cure tooth decay, that guy that wrote that book, and
Oh,
then
geez.
he died of brain cancer in his 30s. Like, that
Yeah.
that whole movement still has a lot
That
of
book lives on, right?
it is still going strong. And so a lot of those approaches are kind of like make some changes and then just assume that you're getting better results. And I think until we get ways, just like what you were saying earlier about like, I feel my gut's telling me my insulin's off, right? Like, how do you have ways to test at home? And the more we give people the opportunity to learn how to test and then look at what that
Yep.
testing says and then make changes based on that. Those are people who come to me a lot more right now. But it's definitely because they have a problem, not because they are looking for prevention. I still don't see a lot of people.
Yes. Well, some
Being
people
just
are lucky, right? Some people are just naturally thin and they're attracted to foods that keep them thin and all that other stuff. And there's some people that just have zero dental problems. And so, whatever they're
I'm not
doing is
either one
working.
of those. I don't understand
I
those
know.
people, but it's all
I
right.
have pretty good teeth. I just can't get rid of the weight. It's just not going.
Yeah.
So it's just everybody has a little different place, and your site allows them to come in at every place that they're at. So, are you doing testing? Are your customers, do they have access to salivary tests that they can use this is the other mind blower. We're still using tools in dentistry that were developed in the 1800s, and these people will not give them up.
Mm-mm.
They're not doing saliva testing, which I'm going to let you describe saliva testing. And they're not using AI technology along with their x-rays. They're just so
They're
much
still using
missing the
only
boat.
X-rays. They're not using any sort of,
Yes,
transillumination or
right.
intraoral cameras that help us detect. Even when we switched to
Mm-hmm.
digital radiography and we lowered the amount of radiation,
Way low.
we really changed the way that we can see teeth and what
Yeah.
we see on them. And it's very difficult to really interpret x-rays. I do want to reach out to some of the AI people um platforms because my whole thing is the thing that I struggle with most is that dentistry is run by distributors. There's very few companies that are direct
Yeah.
to their so the makers of these products do not know who their users are. So there's no way for the makers of their products to communicate with the users, the dental professionals, and say, how is this working for you? How can we
Yeah.
make it better?
There
Like
you go.
none of that happens. And so it's very, very frustrating when you find a great product, but a dentist isn't talking about it online, what they're using and why. So it's very hard for the consumer to get online and do some homework and figure out where they can find some of these things, right? So salivary testing is great. Bristle Health does a nice one, and those are ones that you can do at home. I partnered with them in the beginning of what they were doing, and although we don't work together anymore, I believe that their testing and
Mm-hmm.
that side of what they do can really give you some good education as to where you can go from.
So, but there's Viome, which also does oral cancer. So that's pretty amazing. And if Bristle is in the $300 range, I think Viome is too. And why, if you can get cancer markers at the
I
same
think they can
time,
do cancer markers with Bristle too, can't they?
do they?
Or
I
do they
don't think
not? I
so.
think
I
they
don't
do.
know.
They
They don't advertise it.
they're continuing to evolve. Well, you look at
Yeah,
it,
right.
what is all of their marketing? It's all that safety stuff, right? It's the same thing that the electric toothbrush companies do. We proved ourselves 100% better than manual brushes. With Bristle now, everything is fresh breath. That's the only thing I see them marketing
Oh,
themselves for.
yeah. They can't make health
They
claims.
can't make health claims because of,
Yeah, because of them. So that's another thing I hope we can be able to iron out a little bit better and make it more consumer friendly as we move through our new people. Okay, so that's something that your clients from your website can order a salivary test. So when I say salivary testing, I mean, what does that mean? So, yes, you have saliva, no, you don't. What it does is it shows you what bacteria is present in your mouth.
Mhm.
So, the Viome one is rated for oral cancer. They have also isolated different bacteria, and I wish I could remember what they were for sleep apnea that are only present in sleep apnea patients.
Ooh, I didn't know
So,
that.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
can really, do a lot with these salivary tests. um it just
Well,
there's so many things.
you can even like take your unstimulated saliva and then have sugar and then retest again with your
Mhm.
oral pH. Like there's all sorts of different things that you can do
The oral pH, yep,
to see if your saliva is buffering, because just having saliva in your mouth doesn't necessarily mean
that is good
that
quality.
it's good quality. And then going back to the nanohydroxyapatite, like it only works in the presence of the right kind of a calcium binder. Like nanohydroxyapatite by itself, it's not like if you just add, it's almost like if you take a concrete or a stucco part of your house and you just try and add more stucco, you're not actually, you might change the appearance of the wall, but that stucco that you're adding isn't necessarily integrating into the wall. And we have to create that environment for good, your saliva should be your best remineralizer.
Yeah,
And if you have your mouth open, then you're losing your thin saliva. And if you're not stimulating your thin saliva, then you're stuck with this thick saliva that has more of a biofilm issue with it, which is going to hold on to more acidic bacteria. And then that rabbit hole. So, where I kind of focus is let's help you make the small changes that aren't so difficult to do. And then once those changes aren't so overwhelming, then let's start to look at some of the other things. And you know, I think that's where you and I sometimes like butt heads, where your ideas, while they're awesome and meaningful and truthful, they're hard sometimes to integrate when you are like swimming in a sea of don't know what to do, right?
yeah.
And so
Mhm.
that's where I think my strength is I help people learn how to implement the small changes that are going to help them then have the brain space to make these bigger spaces, which is why I send a lot of my clients to you, because I'm not a I don't want to be a myofunctional therapist. But I
Right.
also know that if you're going to do myofunctional therapy, if you're not if you're not bringing breathing into that, then you're missing another key component, because you're going to get lazy. Your tongue's going to get lazy again. And if you haven't learned how to breathe correctly, which I still struggle with, by the way, and I'm fully aware of it and I'm working on it, if you don't fix your breathing, then when your mouth tone changes again, because it does through life, we all revert back to what's easy and normal for us. If we haven't learned how to breathe, then we've
Yep.
lost all that work on what
Then you
we've done with
just
myofunction.
tumble down. And, and it's good to have somebody that you can have a touchstone with and go, oh my gosh, it's back. And that's understanding and willing to wait. I had a very, very horrendous experience last spring with a friend of mine, Dr. Zaramsky, who died of sleep apnea.
Mhm.
So we all knew it. At every conference, we would walk around and we'd be like, Eric, you need to do something next week, next week. And you're like, it's been 2 years. I know, I'm getting on it. And so he never came out of the shower in the morning. And his wife is also, she's not also, but she is infirm, and she needed to go to the bathroom, and she called him and he didn't answer. So she called his phone and nobody answered. So she thought he went to work. And so eventually she had to go to the bathroom so bad that she called the ambulance to come and take her to the bathroom, which is where they found him. So nobody's real sure how long he would have been laying there. It was a while. And sometimes that really turns me into a raging, get on it person, you know? And I'm wondering too, what am I missing for myself? What am I ignoring? And that's why I went to the doctor again. And then, that has to be part of your health history. Why are you here? I'm a screaming maniac because I don't want to ignore something. And if all you're going to do is, an A1C test and a cholesterol test, I'm not your patient. I'm just not your patient. And I don't know either how to find somebody. It would be nice if there was a website for for unset. I mean, I would put that in your advertising. Are you a consumer anger person where nobody is listening, nobody is going outside of normal for you?
Hmm.
I'm your person.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
that makes me, intolerant of people who are 70 who are not taking care of their sleep apnea. And maybe they will last another 3 months. And if they don't, I did whatever I could do.
Right. And going back to Eric, right? Like talking about the silo of dentistry, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
He what you two loved together was his knowledge and his love for ozone, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Something amazing for dentistry and for oral health, right? But even as a provider, how siloed do we get
Yes.
where
Yep.
it's like and as we are providers, it's like, well, I'm doing this, and you see it all the time. You saw it happen when the DSO model came in, and then people stopped sending to endodontists. People stopped sending to, now dentists are doing orthodontics. Now dentists are doing periodontics. Like they keep things inside because it's at the end of the day, it's more about our budget and our bottom line instead of what is best for the patient. And that's a piece of me that really, really struggles. And unfortunately, I'm still at the place where I have to work with my clients and say, just understand that if you ask these questions, you might be dismissed from this practice.
Ooh.
To be okay with if you're going to push and ask these questions, they may tell you they're not working on you. And it happens often. And we see it in our groups all the time. Patient didn't do what I wanted to say. Dismiss.
Yeah.
What are you talking
They have
about?
to own their disease. They have to do what I say.
Dismiss. It's horrible.
Dismissed.
It's
Go find
horrible.
somebody else to bother.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not going to do what I say, it's my way or the highway. If you're going to question what I do, who are you to question what I do? I call myself these things. You look at a lot of the biological dentists or holistic dentists, and again, no shame on them, but are those marketing words, or do you have things in your practice that actually integrate into wellness? I think
The ones
that's
I know do.
Yeah,
And
but how many of those,
yeah, there's
thousands
not
and
enough.
thousands of dental
There's not
providers?
enough. They
There's
should
not enough.
all be that way. They should all be open. And a couple things. One is that Eric was the exact right consumer anger avatar. If he were to go to a clinic and they would have found that he has sleep apnea, the first thing they would have done and says, here's your CPAP, go away. And that would have been the only answer they gave him instead of doing a comprehensive examination of what in the hell was going on and offering actual solutions. I think that's what's making me feel better in general. And two is these people who are angry, who are coming to us for care or trying us out to see if we're going to match with them, they are very ups. They're very difficult people because they've done so many things and they've spent so much money, and now they finally come onto our doorstep and you're like, I can guarantee you that in a year, maybe 18 months, if you follow these couple of things, your breathing is going to improve, your eyesight's going to improve, your feet are going to stop bothering you. I mean, just a lot of different things. And it sounds too good to be true. So of course, those are the lenses that they're looking at. Where is your website? What is your website?
Oralhealthcoaching.com or my
So
name, carrieibbetson.com. Oralhealthcoaching.com is the platform for my coaching and I've started creating. The good thing about being online for so long and then working through the different technologies that are available is because I'm so immersed with my groups, they're really honest with me. And I think there's a level of honesty because I'm not their provider, right? I'm not the
Maybe.
one that's
Yeah.
actually touching them. And so they are they're it's easy to get them to be critical and it's easy to get them to be praiseful. So the criticism is where I know I have to find those are my missing pieces, right? Those are my things that the technology, technology from 10 years ago doesn't work now, just as an iPhone 6 doesn't
Yeah.
work now for where we're at. So the consumers, um, I hate to use the word lazy, but we've gotten lazy with all of our stuff, right? We want information. We don't have to go to the library and look up the Dewey Decimal System and go find an encyclopedia and do that, right? We can look online,
Mhm.
excuse me, and get that answer right away. And so the speed in which things come to people changes their learning process. I'm sure you find that to be true too. And so if my technology, if I had what I used to have online, which was basically like a series of lessons, right? And
Mhm.
that were it. And it was more, people were more self-guided through that process. And it was, hundreds of dollars to have access to. People just get lost. Like they might purchase my stuff, but if I were just about making money, it would be very different than helping people change lives and helping people feel empowered about the decisions that they're making. Buyer's remorse is so significant in medicine and dentistry, especially in dentistry, because once it's in your mouth, it's yours. You're married to it. And so
Yep.
part of what I talk about is dating your dental professionals and not from like a not from
Hey,
a
how's it going?
inappropriate, yeah,
What
not
you,
from an
how you
inappropriate
doing?
situation, but when you date, you're looking for your right match, right? Like that's the whole point of dating typically for most people is they're looking for somebody that they can have a partnership with. And I think dentistry is the same thing because you as the patient, you leave with it. And right now I'm watching one of my very best friends really struggle with some things that are going on with her daughter and the unwinding of it is so intense and expensive, all because hey, this is the most popular orthodontist that's in the neighborhood, without anybody looking at middle ear dysfunction or tongue placement or why were some of these childhood habits, like what were they about and how is that presenting now? I mean, when that person was done with their with the case, the teeth were beautiful, but the body that went along with the teeth just started breaking down pretty quick. And it's been really difficult to um,
So
be
sad.
be the silent partner in that has to sometimes sit and wait for somebody to come ask me a question,
Yeah.
um, and then also sit with that one of my very best friends while they unwind what's happening and the guilt and the frustration and the anger and stuff that goes along with it. And it's not easy. It's
No,
it's not easy at all,
it's really
especially
hard to watch. Yeah.
because everybody's siloed, right? That's part of
Yep.
the
Everybody's siloed. Nobody asked you, even though you're more of an expert at all of the bridges. I like to say that the silo should be made with a permeable wall so that you can see other people and how they're doing and go, oh, that's a little bit, that's one finger in over here, and just work. There's a lot of crutch going on right now between speech language pathologists, dental hygienists who have become myofunctional therapists, dentists, ENTs, because we all work in a shared domain, right?
Mhm.
We're in a shared area. And really, we all are in a shared domain. The whole body is kind of connected with everything. It's just amazing. Oh my God, here it is, an hour. We're getting on to an hour here. So I really appreciate your perspective and some of the things that you were able to bring up today and the solutions that you're providing to people who are just angry and they don't know who to trust. And they just are looking for somebody to give them the straight scoop and really get to the bottom of their issue, you know?
I think that's the hard part. I don't think that
Yep,
we understand a bottom of our issue. I think that there's so many different pieces to the puzzle that I don't
yep,
think that when we solve one little problem, something else is going to show up. It's a journey. Our
yeah,
bodies are a journey, right?
yeah,
But we're only here in this body, whatever that means. We're only
yeah.
here for a finite amount of time. And I think people just want to feel heard, understood, and connected and feel like if they're going to be spending time, money, and effort, that it's going towards helping them. And I think that the more that we don't lean into that to people to say we understand, we feel, we hear you, we acknowledge you, we agree with you, it makes it really hard. So I'm so thankful that there's providers like you that are pushing your envelope and always wanting to learn, right? When you started myofunctional therapy, well, let's go back to like long before you even knew about myofunctional therapy. It was like, look at this magic stuff, xylitol, which is still an amazing, product. But then it's like, oh, wait, the swallowing and the tongue, and oh, wait, the breathing really matters. And oh gosh, now look at the fascia. And like it's just there's so
Doors to
many.
open. People
Yeah.
are just so broken from all of these epigenetic, circle back to Dr. Pottinger.
It all
And
ends with Pottinger, doesn't it?
yeah,
Isn't that funny?
well, and it does help to try to look at it from a primal perspective, a 12-year-old bedwetter. How is that evolutionarily consistent? If you were sleeping outside or in your cave or whatever, and you started peeing where you sleep, that's like a red flag for you to be dinner for some giant cat or a bear or whatever. You can't,
Speaking
that
of
doesn't work.
speaking of that, too, you're absolutely right. But speaking of that, primal, correct me if I'm wrong, but primal living in different areas of the globe looked different, didn't it? Like,
It did, but there's some generic things like you
sure.
can't wet your bed. You
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
you can't
absolutely.
snore really loud. You can't have to get up 5 times to go to the bathroom in the night. Just stuff like that. Everybody was different. And this is we're opening a whole nother door because you and I are from the north, right? We're from Germany, Norway, England, all of these northern places for 1,000 or more years. That's where our ancestors are from. And if you're from up there and you're trying to live as though you live in the tropics, it's not going to work. You might be happy to have a short sleeve shirt on, but you can't eat like a southerner. You can't do a lot of things like a southerner, especially with the food. So
Yeah.
I just heard another podcast about that, or not about that, but raising that as an issue.
Mm.
So I've been on this train a while,
You
man.
have. You have. And I love it, right? Like I
Yeah,
tried to be veg or vegan at one point in time, and my body was like, I don't know what you think you're doing, right? Like there's no way. Like I couldn't eat enough to
yeah,
make myself feel good. And then the minute I bring more chewy meats and things like that and good healthy fats. I think, again, moving into the Weston Price stuff that is so popular right now, one of the things that gets really poo-pooed are nuts, right? Nuts and grains. Well, it depends on where you're from, if that's good for you
yeah.
or not. But also, what are you sourcing? Is it something that has Monsanto all over it? Has it been pesticide? Like, ooh, I mean, again, the rabbit hole is challenging and difficult.
I agree.
Now you've just made me think about all other things, Shirley, that
Well, I'm going to
I
just
wish.
brag on that topic for just a second. We had I share the office now with a chiropractor, and she was like, "Can you look and see if this girl, she's 13 years old, no, 16, has a tongue tie?" Because I've turned her on to this now. And she's like, "Oh my gosh.
Thankfully.
Yeah, no kidding." And, but she's on her fourth concussion.
From what?
And she couldn't, well, she was screwing around with a swing or something, and she landed on her head, or the head hit
Okay.
something. It
Okay.
was, was stupid stuff, stupid kid stuff that we used to be okay with. Anyway, so she gets smacked in the head. It's the fourth time she's had a concussion in the last, I don't know, 3 years or whatever. It's affected her speech. She can't talk. She stuttered for every word. And so, who cares about a tongue tie if you can't talk at all? So, we talked to her about a TBI diet, a traumatic brain injury diet, which is completely no carbs whatsoever, high fat. So we talked her into eliminating all of the carbs in her diet for, as long as she can stand it, and a half a stick of butter a day. By Friday, so that was either Monday or Tuesday. By Friday, the chiropractor was like, she's only stuttering over every third word. And then, so I saw her as an intake patient then. So now it's not 2 weeks, it's a week and a half since I saw her. You couldn't hardly tell at all that she was stuttering.
Amazing, huh?
It's just amazing. You need, and good healthy fats. People who think that canola oil is a good healthy fat, it is not. It has to be a saturated fat. So rabbit holes abound. And there's always another interesting thing to talk about. And maybe we should reconvene in another month or so. This has been really a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Carrie, for getting up early and doing this little live. And we
Thank
will
you for
see you
having me.
soon.
Before we go, like
Yeah.
as an ending, because we've gone down a bunch of different rabbit holes,
Yeah,
like
we did.
what would be the one piece that you would want your listeners to take away from this?
Our listeners are intended to be professionals, and the one thing they need to take away from this is professional curiosity. Don't just turn off your YouTube. Don't just stop listening to your patients. Really take what they have to heart and really look and go down another couple of rabbit holes. The fluoride thing is really loud right now. If you're a dentist, look, don't just go by your gut or what you've been doing for the last 15 years. That is, to me, the number one thing. And for consumers, is to keep looking for a provider like you and like me that can help them navigate all of this crap with an eye towards complete health. What about you?
I love that. And can I say before I tell you that you have been instrumental with helping me be okay with professional curiosity and also helping me be okay with not being liked, right? It's
Oh,
really difficult when you're just going against the grain because that's what your gut tells you to do. It's very
mm-hmm.
easy to kind of just fall in line and do the status quo and do what's easy. You, over the years, like talk about how I've been able to pivot what I do and continue to, move along in this timeline. You've been amazing at that. So I love that you've come back to having a podcast and having a place where people can like hear, see, think a little bit more about that stuff. And so I guess like my leading, if your ideal client, if your ideal customer avatar is the professionals that you want to encourage to make change, find people that are smarter than you, that don't necessarily think the same way that you do, and ask them why they feel the way that they do, and ask them for beginning steps, like how to get started. Because I think that's the hardest part is actually getting started in doing something that is against, what you've learned, what you've been taught in school, what you've come to utilize as part of your decision making when you're in clinical care, your ethos of clinical care, right? Like these things rock people to their core and they feel wrong, right? They feel wrong about, ooh, when we learn something new, and I think you can go back to this in the beginning of when you were still a hygienist working with your 6 kids, like doing all these things, there's a big pit that opens up in your stomach when you realize
Yep.
that the things that you've been saying may not be true and valid completely anymore. There, instead of feeling guilty, I would encourage you to feel empowered that you are recognizing that just like our phones, we don't
Yep.
have we don't have home phones anymore because we have these,
Yeah.
and this that was once a flip phone is now there's like way things are changing all the time. And so if you're stuck in that same place, the information that you're giving might not be helping your patients through that. And if you don't want to do that, if you want to be a person that just practices your status quo, at least be honest with your patients and allow your patients to go find somebody that might be a better fit. But I would really hope that you would, start finding some of those people that are bigger than yourselves and smarter than yourselves, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And when that challenges your thought, don't take it from a guilt perspective, just take it from a learning perspective. We're always learning, we're always adapting, we're always evolving. So
And
I
don't
think
just change for change, right? That's exactly right. It's progress. It's progress. Otherwise, we'd still all have mole hair and we'd be driving a VW bus or whatever. So thank you so much. And I'm excited to get this thing launched out. Thanks, Carrie.
talk to you soon.